Okay, so I just want to go through a dream from the 23rd of August 2023. So this was only 5 months, roughly, I would estimate, when I was saved. I say that as an estimation because some people have obviously moments where they're literally knocked to the floor when the Holy Spirit comes in. For me, I had a kind of, a kind of a real, a crying, um, sort of thing, which is where I kind of pinpoint it to be for me. I was just fully, um, well, I was just done. I think I was reading John, and I was just floored, absolutely floored by all the, what Jesus did for us, and the Holy Spirit was convicting me so heavily of my sin, so heavily. I was crying my eyes out. And as I said, that was March of 2023. So this is about the third dream actually I've ever recorded. There would have been some other stuff going on, I guess, but I mean, to be honest, I did actually start writing stuff around March of 2023 because of all the stuff started off with not pleasant dreams. I was being attacked by demons for a long time. I actually had 12 months worth of dream of spiritual attacks where I was being attacked roughly every two weeks to a month. So from in the last 2.5 years, I've probably racked up about 25 actual proper attacks by demons. Anyway, that aside. So as I said, that's how it started. I wasn't getting dreams really. I was getting more attacks. And yeah, this one. So 23rd of August, 2023. So I'm just gonna read this one. I might put in some little bits of commentary as I go, but I'm just gonna read this one. So this is, what should I call this one? We'll call this the Beast System. Okay, so this one is set all in modern day, and I was in a supermarket. Is where this dream takes place. But I'm just going to give you a bit of context. So there was basically a huge lie that was kind of overshadowing everything that you do, and there was no one who was brave enough really to push back against the system. Okay, so it feels like almost like if you think of little by little, more and more of our freedoms are taken away. But because it's a slow process, it's a little bit like the frog in the boiling pan, isn't it? As the temperature's going up, because it started cold and it was comfortable, it was fine, but it doesn't realise it's been boiled to death. I think that's the situation we're in right now. There's lots of things, freedoms being taken away, and we're conceding out these freedoms because we're just letting a little bit go. Yeah, okay, fair enough. We'll concede that till it gets to the point where they've got a stranglehold on you and you've got nowhere to go anymore. We're going to be at that point soon, and that's what this felt like. This felt like this had got to actually a point of I mean, I'll go through this, but this was the point of decision. The Beast System had just come in, and it was me doing a food shop, and it was like, right, you can't buy unless you've got the mark. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? But the build up to it, as I said, it was this overshadowing darkness, I would say, where no one was brave enough, as I said, to challenge it. It's now got so much power, this Beast System, that it can do whatever it wants now at this point. To do so would obviously, to challenge it, all it would take would obviously some people to push back, and this whole system would unravel. But no one's brave enough to do that. Okay. So there was this satanic control basically over the whole of the world. Dark forces were basically enforcing it, and as in demonic spirits were actually enforcing this system. Not that they were seen by people, but they were the ones, pulling the levers, all that kind of thing. They were the ones actually controlling it. And it had now, this beast system had got its tentacles into everything, so you're going to have companies, major companies that are on board with this system. So you can't buy, you can't. The supermarkets are on board. Everyone's on board. So you can't really escape it. So as I said, I was in this supermarket doing a standard food shop. So I'm in actually the bakery section. I'm picking up some burger buns as it goes, or something like that. Anyway, and I felt that if you imagine most shelves in our supermarkets tend to be around about a bit more on the head height, aren't they? Because obviously you have to be able to reach up to stuff, but not you'll have up to head height, and then sometimes I might put some boxes or something on the top, for storage for actually then bringing down and putting more stock on. Well, I was going along and I was getting my stuff out of the bakery section, and I felt that there was a spirit. This spirit was walking along the top of this aisle, and it was just following me. It's following me, and it was actually a dragon. Weird, really weird. I've never had a dragon before. This was a dark dragon, but it was spirit in entity. It was an entity, and it was a bit smaller than a man would be. So if you imagine a man crawling on all fours, it was a bit smaller than that, but it's pretty big, and as I said, it was a spirit being rather than being a solid being. I'm seeing it. Nobody else is seeing it. Okay. Rather than it being solid, yeah, it was basically pacing up and down the aisle, prowling up and down the food aisle, looking menacing. It looked like it hated me, really hated me, hated everybody around, but it was pacing up and down. As I said, it's a dragon. Now, how I would describe it is, if you've seen the cartoon sort of thing, How to Train a Dragon, the main character is a black dragon, which is called Fish Face, isn't it? It looked a lot like that. It looked a lot like that actually. But over the as this thing's prowling up and down, over the big loud like tannoy sort of system, there's an announcement. So it says to the whole shop, and it's talking about means of paying for your food. Now, what I'd also say is the supermarket didn't have many people in it. It seemed to be quite bare. Every time I go shopping, there's always quite a few people around me, even if I go late at night, even with 24-hour. It was almost like I was going when it was like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. There was just no one around really, hardly anybody. But anyway, they're talking about that it was that they were implementing the mark of the beast. So. This was my first time. This was the first time I was going to a supermarket, and it was like, right, if you don't have the mark of the beast, then you can't buy or sell. I don't know whether they will refer. I doubt they'll refer to it as the mark of the beast, or they'll. I think it will just be, have some sort of marketing on it or whatever. But this was the first time it was actually being enforced. So then I'm thinking, how am I going to pay for this food? So I need to make a decision. It's either to go along with this or not. And it felt like society, it was almost like, sounds strange, right? But it almost felt like this announcement going out was going out everywhere. And it was like I could hear almost let's say like the hive mind of humanity almost, or local areas and stuff like that of their decisioning. I know that sounds really, really bizarre. But it's almost like I could feel it in my spirit as to loads and loads of people are making decisions, and there is mixed feelings obviously about it. So I felt the society had to make a decision because this was going to be enforced, obviously, and this demonic system was basically grabbing territory in our lives, as I've already mentioned. So more and more and more territory was being taken for Satan, and no one was brave enough to actually push back, stand up to it. And so we kept on losing all of our liberties. However, we've now got to a critical point. So this was decision time. And I felt that all the demonic systems were now ready to go. So basically they've got all their ducks in a row. They are ready to go. It is enforcement time now. Given all the ground that they'd taken up in a society, the system had just basically grown. As the system had grown stronger and stronger and stronger, the consequences of saying no were now going to be extreme. As I said, we've gone past all the friendly sort of part of as I said, they're taking on the liberties and bits and pieces. We've got past that now. We've got past that, and this is going to be enforced. If you don't comply at this point, then you're going to be killed possibly, or you're certainly going to be taken into custody for sure. As people sort of tentatively are kind of carrying on with their shopping, but I feel a rise of dissent of people pushing back, and this dragon thing that's roaming. almost like kind of, it's almost like it sniffs out the dissent, if that makes sense. It suddenly it's like these dark forces that have thought everybody was on board, because they have been up to this point. Society has just gone along with it. As soon as they feel some pushback, then their demeanour changes, and it goes from "this is all for your own safety, this is all for your own good," to "right, we're coming after you now," that kind of thing. Your disobedience is going to be punished. Um, so you felt watched all the time, everywhere you go, in all these different aisles, everywhere you go, and you felt very, very uneasy, very, very watched. Everyone's careful about what they say, even to the point where you don't even want to knock anything off the shelf. Like if you touch the shelf and knock something off, it almost feels like somebody's going to be on you, and you're going to be carted out or something like that, that kind of thing. You didn't want to attract any kind of attention at all. So as I said, it's very, very quiet. Everyone's just walking around. Nobody's talking to each other at all. There's no music. It's quiet. It's really eerily quiet in this supermarket. Everyone's quietly shopping, as to go as unseen as possible. And the atmosphere I sensed, as I said, slightly changed to the realization of there being a spiritual element to what was going on. Almost like people now had an awakening as to this is more. This is not just human in people trying to grab power. There is a spiritual element to this, and it was like an awakening. People become aware that they're being deceived, and that they've suddenly the trap's closing, and pretty much closed, and they realise they're trapped. They're kind of like, what? How do we get out of this? Well, you can't. It's done. It is done now. You are in this system, and now you comply or die. So being deceived, and it's almost the ears of these demonic forces suddenly prick up, and being aware of this shift in sentiment of the people, they are sensing our thoughts essentially, and this was countrywide. So it's a countrywide realization, and it sort of reminded me of the Sentinels in the Matrix, where they're kind of floating along, and they've got all their tentacles, haven't they? And they all come out with different means of picking up on the Nebuchadnezzar coming through, and so they've got all these different ways of sensing it, and this is what it's like. So they're like sentinels. They're literally just like sentinels, these spirit beings, and they actually moved like it as well, because the sentinels in the Matrix, they kind of flow, don't they? Their arms kind of flow like. That's exactly what these were like, because this demonic dragon thing was a spirit, so it moved like a spirit. It's all kind of flowy. Anyway, and yeah. So these dark dragons, it reminded me, as I said, How to Train a Dragon movie, prowling around sentinels like in the Matrix. Anyway, so absolute hate rises up in these sentinel kind of things, within them at this pivotal point, and they decide they are going to act. They're going to act. They're going to enforce this immediately upon those that are not complying. And I felt, hate so strong that I got a sense of this thing wanted to strangle me, because it knew that I was not playing along, and this dragon thing is then thinking, I'm going to strangle this. So it's like the demonic realm, as I said. This is exactly, the demonic realm absolutely hates humans, hates them. That you get that sense every time. When I got that sense of being cuddled and hugged, and I love you. Behind that, it was a fake love. I knew it was a fake love. Somebody can say they love you and don't mean it. And then I basically, then I wake up. So I get this sense of this is about to be enforced. Okay? So my thoughts as soon as I wake up are, as I said, that this prowling dragon is essentially a sentinel. It's a guard that's wandering, it's prowling around, ready to, listening, and then looking to enforce. So I guess this would report to someone, and then the humans are obviously going to detain people. And it made me think of actually that, as I said, all those tools that came out like on the Matrix sort of thing. It made me think of the listening tools that we have in our society, social media, banking, word of mouth, friends, family, neighbours, work colleagues. It felt like we'd gone into a kind of communistic kind of, everyone's ratting on everybody. You know, you can't, there can't be any idle talk at all because you don't know whether somebody's going to report you. You don't even know if your friends are your friends. It was that kind of feeling that you were getting as society was being moulded to not accept this beast system, but the system was being moulded to the beast system. We were adapting to what was coming in. Yeah, what else have we got? Right, okay. So at the end of this dream, in part of this dream, I'd actually had some sort of a conversation actually with my mum, and we'd made a decision that we were going to speak out, and that we were now actually going to be an enemy to the system. And other aspects of the dream. Yes, I put other aspects of the dream were the taking ground within this beast system were actually large corporations. So these could be like your big social media ones that come on board. Think of obviously 2020 and how they complied with those that were not conforming to the narrative at the time, were kicked off of various different various different social networks and stuff like that. There's obviously during 2020, the time I'm talking about, there was obviously implementation of people not being able to buy. That happened in Canada with the truckers. So that happened there. They literally shut down their bank accounts. They couldn't buy, and they were relying upon charity and cash, obviously, to actually buy food and stuff like that. Again, another demonstration of exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. So I said that there was many different parts that were all going by the same. They're all playing a part. All these different companies were all essentially part of this beast system, and they're all coming on board. And I don't know whether it's that kind of critical mass kind of effect where, oh yeah, but all of these other ones are part of our club now. You sure you don't want to come on board, because it's going to mean that you can't partake in what we're involved in. It's good business. It's good business sense. Come on, this kind of thing. That's what it felt like. Territory's been taken. It's been taken quite quickly. And this is because of all these other major companies, the big brands you know of, were all coming on board and essentially conforming to this system that was coming up. They were just thinking business, business, business. They weren't thinking about people at all. They were thinking about profits and money. That's all they were thinking about, and that was driving their decisions. And society was just being swallowed up by all of these different companies. As I said, yeah, there we go. I wrote, and it hit a critical mass. We were at critical mass point, and this was it. This was, we've got 51% share now. We are the controlling share. We make the decisions. Right, this is what we're doing. That kind of thing. No one was left to challenge it. So many people were on board. There was no strong companies left. All the big companies were on board, and it was fully on board. And now it was, you don't want to then go against the system because they'll boot you out their club. And as far as companies go, and as far as citizens go, well, you're going to be, that the further and further into this, the more and more you're going to be pushed out of society. So all your social media, all that kind of stuff, right, we're shutting you down from that. Okay. Your banking, well, okay, well, we're going to shut you down from that because we've heard that you're somebody who's not on board with what the party says. Let's say, that if you're thinking about communism and things like that, if you're going against the party, right, well, then we're going to push you out of society. So that's what it was very much like. And as I said, the trap was closing, but it was closing so slowly that people didn't see it happening until it was too late, and that was it. Game over. So as I said, it got to the point where I was thinking that we were going to start having armed police or something like that. They were going to be outside supermarkets. There was going to be full enforcement. Now, something I would also like to just quickly add on is that when when 2020 happened, and we were going to supermarkets, because obviously making sure that there wasn't too many people in there, social distancing, all that kind of stuff, we had a traffic light system in our supermarket, so that you would have to stand there, wait for the green light to let you in. Is there not going to be some sort of retinal scan? Is there not going to be some sort of a hand scan? Is there not going to be some sort of mark? Something that you need to do to even let you in the supermarket? I think that's what was there. 2020 was a big awakening for me. Huge. I was. It took me a while before I came to Christ as a kid. That being 2023, but that's where it all started. Anyway, I've got to go. Thanks for your time. Hopefully you found this interesting.